Hey everyone, welcome to Real Wealth Real Estate with Alex Wilson, broker owner of Remax Wealth Builders Real Estate. And today I brought Tyler Pearson back, co-founder, owner of Malleum Investments. Um, and the reason I have him here is we just had the launch of Television City condos, and I basically call Tyler Mr. Hamilton. He has zero vested interest in Television City condos, whether it does well or doesn't do well or that kind of thing. But I brought him on because he can give you that unbiased opinion on Hamilton, what he's seen since you brought me into Hamilton in 2014, but you were in Hamilton, I think,
Yep.
10 years before that.
Yep.
Um, the change in Hamilton, what's on the ground now, and what the future of Hamilton is. Um, and well, I guess let's give people an idea of what you own in Hamilton. How many residential doors do you have in Hamilton that you currently own or are under management?
Good question. In short answer, I don't know the answer because I lost count probably 2 or 3 years ago. Um, I think at one point we had a couple hundred, and I think now it's meaningfully more than that. As crazy as it sounds, now we don't really talk about units internally. We talk more just about buildings.
Mhm,
So right now, I think the last check we had 30 or 32 buildings
mhm.
across our various funds, and all but two of those are in the downtown core of Hamilton, and the vast majority of them are truly kind of in the core of Hamilton, kind of a stone's throw away from the Television City development.
Yeah, and you have newer buildings that have been renovated. And
Yep.
what are you looking at for vacancy in your properties? How's the vacancy rate?
It really all depends on the quality. I'll say, Hamilton is certainly, they like a lot of municipalities and a lot of city centers. In my eyes, and just my humble opinion, they still lack, quite frankly, lack a meaningful amount of quality inventory.
Yeah, I agree.
When there's new projects like Television City or some of the other developers that are starting to come to town, I'm very, very supportive of that. Some people ask us if we get concerned about that because in theory, I guess they could be viewed as competitive stock to the rental market. But at the end of the day, I've always viewed anybody, quite frankly, that's willing to raise private funds and invest those private funds in a market that we're invested in. I view them very much as an ally, and I truly believe all ships will rise together. And as much growth that I would say that Hamilton has seen in the 15 plus years that I've been investing there, yeah, I've got no problem saying it is still, in my humble opinion, in its very, very, very early stages. It's extremely early innings in terms of where Hamilton is, and I think where it's going to go over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, et cetera. So, yes, it would have been great to buy there 5 or 10 years ago, but to me, we're still on the low level floors right now, and I think this elevator is going up in a meaningful way.
Yeah, and that's where I'll add. Like, I know when you started taking your business full steam into Hamilton over a decade ago, like you literally live on the doorstep of Hamilton. Like, so you moved your
Yep.
your family to be right on the border of Hamilton. Your office is right downtown Hamilton.
Yep.
You do social events in downtown Hamilton,
Yep.
and I'm a big cheerleader for Hamilton. I tell people Hamilton's a real city. You've seen the change in downtown, and that's what makes that's why there's so much room to growth. Like, it's actually a real city and has big city infrastructure that was built by steel over 50 years ago. Uh,
Yeah.
let's talk more about that.
Well,
Like, what do you
I
think of the
think that's a
infrastructure
good.
downtown?
Well, I think that's I think infrastructure. I guess I'll get to in a minute, but I think you know you alluded to it. I moved to the doorsteps of Hamilton. My wife and I and our family we're now living in Aldershot and have been for the better part of, I guess, 6 years now. But prior to that, 10 or 11 years, we lived right in downtown Toronto. And to me, this is why I love real estate. I don't think you need to be, a rocket scientist to, or the world's smartest man or the world's smartest woman to do well in real estate. I think you just need to follow basic economic fundamentals, and when those fundamentals begin to align, you feel confident putting some chips on the board. And to me, what I saw in Toronto on streets in pockets like Ossington or Ronceville or Queen East or Queen West or Parkdale even, um, those exact characteristics, underpin so many pockets and still do in many ways, underpin so many pockets of Hamilton. And I feel very good about where they're going to go and how they're going to transition. And if I had a crystal ball, which obviously I don't, but if I did, I would feel very confident that they are going to transition in a way that we saw and you saw, Alex, in Toronto over the last kind of 10 or 15 years. So to me, it's still very, very early days. Going to infrastructure now, I think, finally, I'll still believe it when I see it because it's been a political football for the better part of 10 or 12 years. But what I'm referring to is the LRT. But, just this past year, fortunately, the Fed stepped up with some large financial backing to kind of underpin the gap that exists at the provincial level. And by all accounts, the LRT infrastructure project has now been fully funded. The feasibility studies are well underway. They're continuing to expropriate properties. They're continuing to knock down properties along the line. So things are actually happening, and that's a multi-billion-dollar project that is going to go right through the downtown core. And everybody wants to talk about, the $4 or $5 billion that's going to be committed to the LRT. But what a lot of people don't talk about, and maybe it's just because they don't know, but that $4 or $5 billion, that's going to pale in comparison to the private dollars that are going to fall behind that. There's going to be 5, 10, 15, $20 billion of private investments, other developers that are going to do what they do all over the world, and that's line that corridor with buildings and commercial offices and whatnot. So, that's what I get really excited about, because that is inevitably what is coming over the next handful of years.
Oh yeah, like if you look at like Mississauga, Oakville, Burlington, and there's nowhere to build downtown. Like there's
No.
no commercial corridor you can build downtown. They're done. That's where again the footprint in downtown Hamilton allows that like secondary commerce hub to be developed
For sure.
in the greater horseshoe in the GTHA, and investing in the 3.4 billion to allow mobile transit in the downtown core is absolutely going to be massive. And I was thinking the other day, just well, I've seen people leave Toronto, move to
Hmm.
Hamilton, and, we're in our 40s now, or you're almost there. You're younger.
Not yet.
Yeah, you're just behind me. But when I actually was sitting down, I'm like, how many like people that we went to school with? Because after school, everyone moved to Toronto. There isn't that many left. They've all like really
Yeah.
left Toronto, and again, like that's what's gonna they're you have these young families, they're
Yep.
leaving Toronto, and where are they going to go? Like Hamilton is the affordable pocket. Like if you look at pricing in Oakville's freaking expensive. Mississauga's freaking
Hmm.
expensive. Burlington is freaking expensive. Well, Hamilton
Hmm.
still offers some affordability. And again, we go back to the lifestyle. Like you're talking about Queen West, Ossington, Parkdale. These vibrant communities, the arts and culture, which I say money follows arts and culture. That's where
Yep.
it's going to go
It's true.
to next. I'm so excited. And you got a major university, McMaster there. Downtown Hamilton,
Yep.
you have the School of Medicine. It's right downtown. It's spitting distance to the television's city condos,
Yep.
and I'm sure you have medical students or faculty that stay in some
A
of your
lot.
buildings.
A lot. Yeah, there's no doubt of, a major demographic amongst our portfolio is certainly young urban professionals, but, a good percentage of those people are, either graduate students or certainly, nurses and or interns that are, working at one of the various hospitals. So, yeah, to me, it's been amazing to watch the city grow. It's been amazing. Inevitably there's been challenges, and inevitably there will be challenges with growth, because that's just what happens when you grow. Not everybody likes growth. Growth is going to occur, unfortunately, whether you like it or not. We all know what the immigration numbers are over the next handful of years. They are extremely, they're exciting, but at the same time they're also daunting, because the reality is, those who know, we just don't have enough inventory at all to support the types of inflows that are being projected right now. So to me, the more shovels we can get in the ground, the faster we can get those shovels in the ground, the better everybody's going to do. But again, going back to just Hamilton and why I like it, you mentioned Mississauga, you mentioned Oakville, Burlington, et cetera. Hamilton, and I have no problem saying this. In many people's eyes, it still has a bad rap. It still has a stigma associated with it, and the reality is, it's unfortunate because what it has, it's got a ton of character. What it has, in
Exactly.
my eyes, far more quality restaurants than Oakville, Burlington, and I mean that. Like the food scene is absolutely incredible. The cultural scene is absolutely incredible. It just has so many unique, you know, differentiating characteristics than a market like Oakville or Mississauga, and inevitably they have differentiating characteristics as well over Hamilton. But to me, the demographic that I think you know that I think resonates with what you outlined, Alex, arts, cultural, education. It's a young urban demographic. Those are city builders. Those are what move populations. Those are what, truly move the needle in terms of, I don't want to say it, but I'm going to say it, gentrification, because we all know that as a bad word, but in many ways and sectors, it should not be viewed as a bad word. It will come with change, but that change can be positive if it has the right ingredients around it. But those young urban professionals, to me, are what are going to underpin the city moving forward. And it's those people that are, in my eyes, are going to be renters at Television City, and it's those people that are going to, be servers and be doctors, et cetera. So to me, it's all good. I don't, I don't really see any real downside with the additional development. And unfortunately, people talk about the glass towers that are going to come to the downtown core of Hamilton. It's private investment dollars that Hamilton has not seen, quite frankly, ever, to the extent that they're now fortunate enough to be viewing.
Oh yeah,
So to me,
remember
it's
when
exciting.
we were first buying in like Hamilton, like the amount of residential purpose-built buildings were
It was not
zero.
almost zero. Like, and if they were there,
Didn't
and we still
exist.
own many of them, like we're talking stock that was built in the 1910s, 1920s, 1930s. Like, people talk about the lack of, new purpose-built rentals that have built in the last 20 or 30 years. Hamilton, I'll go back to the last, 50, 60, 70 years. So, they are in dire need of quality product. And I can say this firsthand because not all of our product is high end, but a portion of our portfolio is very high end. People are willing to pay for quality. They're willing to pay a premium for Hamilton standards, a premium, but it still comes at a meaningful discount than what they were paying for that one bedroom or bachelor condo in downtown Toronto.
Well, and that's where I'll frame this for everyone. Tyler's whole business model is buying those buildings from the 1910s,
Yeah.
1920s, and repurposing them to make them adequate living quarters for people to rent. They you're the person on the ground. You've seen how garbage, absolute garbage condition these buildings are in. You build a business model around that, so you know how limited the stock is of a higher quality building. It just
Yep.
doesn't exist out there because it's just been a lack of investment for decades, decades on
And it's
decades
not
on
just
decades.
garbage. Like it's not, some of
It's
it's,
not, it's not unlivable.
some of it's like it's truly, it's unlivable. What we see, and I mean this in the most sincere way, what we see all the time, it's just not safe. Like many of these buildings are not safe at all for people to be living there. Fire alarms are not connected, plumbing's not functioning, there's mold everywhere. Like these are not apartments that people should be living in. They require private investment for them to have another chapter at life. And that's kind of why we think there's such a sweet spot for us to operate in, and I think it's one of the reasons why we've done so well over the last number of years.
And I'm going to add, and I talked about this when I did my video on Television City earlier this week. And I believe this is what's going to happen. So we talked about Hamilton actually having an arts and culture scene, being a destination that people are going to want to live in. If you and I were in our 20s or early 30s, single, no kids, like it, I'd want to live in downtown Hamilton because it's my
For
affordable
sure.
option. But on top of that, what I expect to see, maybe you've already seen it. Um, COVID means there'll still be working at home. You and I,
For
like,
sure.
we know people are going back to the office. We're both love working at the office, but we know people will have to go back to the office, but they will maintain
Yep.
part of the time that we work in at home. So if I'm working at home 1 to 2 to 3 days a week, and I need to go to the office 2 to 3 days a week. Um, do I need to live downtown? Or maybe I can live in downtown Hamilton, which offers a great, vibrant lifestyle for me. And if I'm only have to go to the office 2 to 3 times a week,
Yep.
maybe a 1 hour commute each way isn't that bad because I'm a 10-minute walk to the GO train station from downtown.
Yep.
And then as the infrastructure develops in the area, now you're gonna have satellite offices being opened in downtown for employers who attract young workers that are enjoying the population. So I firmly believe that people will make downtown Hamilton a home because it's more affordable, and they will work downtown Toronto because they don't have to go every day.
Totally agree. So on that note too, whether it's, here's my just general, maybe tidbit of wisdom, I would say, and it's nothing that comes from me is in my eyes rocket science. So don't pretend I'm trying to be something I'm not. I might have a few golden nuggets in this head, but not a lot. But anyways, where I'm going is there's no doubt work from home in one capacity is here to stay. More than where it was pre-COVID. There's no doubt about it. People may disagree with that, but I think for sure a certain percentage of the population will have a much more meaningful amount of flexibility to work from home, and I think they will choose to do so. And to your point, Alex, markets like Hamilton, all of a sudden, they were starting to become appealing pre-COVID just due to affordability levels. Now they're that much more appealing because now you can actually truly live there and only have to commute into Toronto maybe once or twice or 3 days a week. But one thing we've seen in a meaningful way in the last kind of 12 months, as this trend has begun to occur, is obviously people are looking for they're looking for a little bit more space. They're looking for sure, they're looking for outdoor space. So balconies, for example, they're looking for one plus a den or a 2 bedroom. So I'm not going to tell you how to market and promote Television City because you're very good at what you do. But I would say anybody who's listening and they're looking at making this as an investment, whereas by default they're going to be renting it out, I would say strongly consider a slightly larger unit that has that den or has that extra bedroom, because it's certainly what is in extremely high demand right now.
Yeah.
So that's just my color commentary based on what we're seeing kind of in the trenches over the last
Well,
12
you're
to
you're
18 months.
you're the big landlord. Like you've the hundreds on hundreds and hundreds of units that you manage there. And I'll ask this question just on your higher end product, or even just a change you've seen over the years. How's the quality of the tenants in regards to the applicants you're getting in?
So certainly depends on the 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 product itself, the quality of the unit. For our medium to higher end products, it's A class tenants. Truly A class tenants. Like if you want to use Toronto as an example, they are A class tenants coming from A class buildings in Hamilton, or sorry, coming from A class buildings in Toronto, but they're used to A class living.
Mhm.
So they're going to search out a product, as good, if not quite frankly better than what they were used to in Toronto, because their money can go further, right? So to me, the screening process in terms of how we've been seeing new applicants and how that has evolved over the last, call it 2 to 3 years, it's certainly evolved in the positive direction. And again, it's probably why it's one of a handful of reasons that underpins why a lot of our newer projects is certainly catering to that type of tenant profile. So yeah, it's kind of what we've seen over the last kind of 12 to 18 months for sure.
Yeah, because sometimes people ask me about, oh, well, what kind of person is going to live in Hamilton and rent my unit? The idea of you're going to have be attracting subpar tenants in the area, it's a misconception because it's people that are choosing not to live in Toronto anymore.
Yeah,
They're the
like
ones renting these units now.
small example, like we had, I remember it was like 3 years ago. We just finished a building a little bit more on the eastern side of the downtown core, so still an area in transition, I'll call it. But the units were nice. The units were, in my eyes, still some of the best 2 bedroom units in the downtown, but they were on the fringe of the downtown, I'll call it.
How how
Um,
how
and
how close to Main Street, like our Main Street?
uh, they'd be they'd be a 5 minute walk
Oh
from
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I'll
that's
test
fringe,
it. Definitely a
right?
fringy area. Yep,
Yeah.
yep. It's a fringy area.
So, but again, like those pockets I love as well, because
Mhm.
those pockets to me, it's important for people who don't know Hamilton to know this. Just like Toronto, there's so many little pockets, and just like Toronto, and again, I don't have my crystal ball, but I'm willing to place some meaningful bets on this, and quite frankly, I am. Just like Toronto and other major centers throughout North America, or quite frankly, the world, those pockets almost become their own little destination nodes.
Yeah.
And as those nodes grow and as they get their own identity, it fuels their own little real estate market, which inevitably fuels a larger real estate market. But to me, Hamilton has so many little nodes that are just, again, in their in the very early infancy stage of kind of where I think they will go over the next 3 to 5 years. So, that building I was talking about, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago. After we renovated it, one of the first applicants we got was a 30-year a 30-year veteran Air Canada pilot that was flying 767s over to Asia basically every handful of days. And obviously, his income was almost 200 grand a year, and that to me was it's a small story, but to me it was a moment where I'm like, crap, like I think there's real demand here for this level of quality product. Everybody thought we were crazy by investing what we did into this building and having product that looked and felt the way it did in this area of town. But it really underpinned the fact that people are willing to travel and people are willing to pay for quality.
Yeah. Yeah.
So to us, that really kind of put obviously, you know, two or three other dozen projects into motion around the level of quality that we were going to go after moving forward, because we saw that kind of thesis prove out, and clearly over time it's continued to prove out, which is why we continue to kind of rinse and repeat our model.
And how and I'll wrap this up shortly. How much have you seen prices jump over the last couple of years?
Whew. Rent levels have been crazy, like 20+%, as crazy as that sounds. In many cases, year over year for the last 3 years, 4 years, which is just insane. I have no problem saying that. But again, like we all don't need to go down the supply and demand imbalance, but anybody who's studied economics knows that one of the real reasons behind this, excessive price increases, we all know, is just a massive imbalance. And at some point, maybe that will get fixed. I'm not, unfortunately or fortunately, I'm not holding up my breath that it's going to be fixed anytime soon, because in order for that to happen, all three levels of government need to get on the same page. And not to go into a political rant, I just don't see that happening anytime soon. So I think a lot of these underlying, a lot of these underlying economic fundamentals are going to exist. I think a lot of the underlying challenges as it pertains to, putting a little bit of a cap on some of these extreme price hikes and appreciations. I don't know if it's going to change materially over the coming handful of years. So I just don't. I mean, I'm a very basic fundamental investor. I don't really care about what has happened in the last 3, 4, 5 years. I don't really care about what is in the rearview mirror. I care about looking forward, and all economic fundamentals and everything that I study and know about the Hamilton market. Population is going to be increasing. We are already in a severe shortage of apartment stock, and until that is resolved in one way, shape, or another, I think you're going to continue to see upward pressure on, or upward momentum on rental rates, and I think you're going to continue to see downward pressure on cap rates.
Yep, and just touching on the immigration part of it, and we are today on February 25th, 2020. I've always said Canada is an oasis in a sea of chaos, and we all know what happened this week with
That's
Russia's
crazy.
invasion of Ukraine. And I did a
Crazy.
video on that a month ago, just talking about how that would impact Canada and how it would lead to higher real estate prices. Yeah, what exactly? You don't care what happened in the past. You're looking forward to the future, and just the pure infrastructure. Like when I talk about like social infrastructure, economic
Yep.
infrastructure, it's not going to come online. There's no way that you're going to be able to put that housing stock next 10 years. Like the next 10
No.
years, there'll be no fundamental change, because it's not possible. Like
It sounds
I've had
good. It looks
conversations.
good in the paper, right? Like it looks good in headlines. It sounds good that we need to build 1.5 million homes. Like it sounds great. The reality is it requires a plan, and then that plan needs to be executed on. And
Yeah, you need
I
plan,
just don't see it
execution.
happening.
No, you need the labor and you need the materials. So
That's
there's
a good
no
point.
labor,
The labor
there's no
materials, yeah,
there's no labor, there's no materials, and there's no cooperation between governments. So how is it going to happen? It's not.
correct.
So that means that we're gonna again things go like this. Things
Yep.
go ebb and flow. It's like you'll see quiet periods and then you'll see busy periods. 100%. But looking forward over the next 5 to 10 years, there is nothing out there that is going to substantially change anything. And even just when we look on a worldwide basis, and now the new reality that we're going to be in, and that new reality is going to last probably about 20 years. Realistically, it's going to be generational.
Yep.
The stuff that happened this week. So
Oh, it's
um,
crazy.
that's this is what our reality is going to be, and Hamilton is good from a real estate perspective is only going to benefit.
Yeah, there's no doubt. You did a good job of summarizing that. Like, I think, to really simplify it, there is and there always will be just a tremendous amount of noise around us, right? It's our job as good investors to weed through that noise and to honestly just get back to basics, or quite frankly, don't forget about the basics, because
That's even better. Yeah.
it's the basics, it's the basic fundamentals that allow you to make good real estate investment decisions or good business decisions, in, in their whole, or just in general. So to me, you don't need to deviate. You don't need to chase a new shiny object. You just need to follow a proven track record of what works, and follow a proven example of what drives real estate markets. And I think if you do, you will be rewarded. And if you try to go off and chase something a little bit more exciting, it may work out, but it also could bite you. I like boring investments. I've told you that all the time. I like very simple, boring investments. I don't think I'm a boring guy, but apparently my investment style is I like to build it. I like to create value. I like to set it up, and then I like to manage it and make it run, and then go on to the next. I don't like to deviate from a winning formula. And I think, there's no doubt that you've done exceptionally well at identifying what projects are the right projects for investors, and which projects are not the right investors, or sorry, excuse me, which projects are not the right for investors. Because the reality is, not everyone is, right? Like, that's just, you don't pitch every project. You're very, very selective with which ones you bring to your network, and quite frankly, I have a lot of respect for that.
Yep. So let's leave it on that. That's good.
Perfect.
we
No
we
problem.
we we got other stuff we got to do, but I really wanted to bring you on just to again. I love getting an unbiased opinion on a market. It's one thing for me to be a cheerleader on it, and I'm like, I got to get Tyler on to talk about Hamilton, because I get people humming and hawing. I'm like, you don't understand what Hamilton is, and you're Mr. Hamilton. You've invested tens on tens of millions of dollars of your money and other people's money, and have hundreds on hundreds of units under management, and doing it over a decade. So people needed to hear it from the horse's mouth, I think. So
Yeah,
thank
no,
you
I think it's
again
a good
for
way to end it.
yeah.
No worries.
Th-
Thank you.
th- Thank you again for coming online, Tyler Pearson, uh, owner, co-founder of Malleum Investments, also an investor in Calgary. Just giving a little Calgary plug. Had to put it in
Yeah,
there.
very
As we
bullish on
see,
Calgary.
yeah, very, yeah. We're both very bullish on Calgary. But again, thank you for coming online, and we'll talk to everyone soon. Okay, see everyone later. Real wealth, real
Always a
estate.
pleasure.
Alex Wilson. Okay, bye, guy.